I'm a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to newspapers. Every morning we take the Times, partly because I enjoy reading it and partly because it supports the newsagent who pays Anna's wages for a morning paper round. But online I tend to read The Guardian because, in my opinion, it has the best football section, the most important bit. It's while reading the football section of The Guardian recently, I saw a very uplifting headline in the sidebar that said running a small business has become almost impossible. Now, not exactly the sort of thing that kind of brightens up my day when I was just looking for a bit of Liverpool transfer gossip, but the more I thought about it, the harder it was to actually disagree. Now, the article was talking about the pressures of facing small businesses, rising wages, higher national insurance, increasing costs, customers having less money in their pockets, and we've certainly seen a lot of that. You know, we've had the banking crisis, Brexit, COVID, Ukraine, inflation, energy prices, NI rises, minimum wages up, extra dividend tax, and now conflict involving Iran. And that's it's a real list of issues, not the lyrics of a Billy Joel song. And at times it can feel as though business owners are expected to absorb every shock that gets thrown at the economy. Because if you've been running a business for any length of time, it can feel as though you've kind of lurched from one crisis to the next. Just when one challenge starts to disappear in the rearview mirror, another appears over the horizon. The great thing is that most business owners do simply keep going. Every time a new challenge appears, they adapt, regroup, and somehow find a way through. For example, during COVID, we had clients in travel, hospitality and events whose income virtually disappeared overnight. One week they were planning for growth, recruiting staff, investing in the future. The next they're wondering whether they even survive. You know, there was some incredibly difficult conversation during those years as businesses that had been built up over long periods of time were suddenly kind of fighting for their survival. And today the pressures are different, but they're still very, very real. The recent increases in employers' national insurance and the national minimum wage have had a big impact on many of our clients, particularly if you run a restaurant, a cafe, bar, retail business or hospitality with lots of team members. Those increases meant the costs add up very, very quickly. And at the same time, customers are facing high costs themselves and becoming more careful about where they spend their money. And then, of course, there's tax. Over the last few years, we've seen corporation tax go up, dividend taxes increase, allowances reduced or frozen, and of course, I've mentioned employers' NI rising sharply. None of these changes are necessarily kind of dramatic on their own, but they all nibble away at the reward of taking the risk of running a business. And that's probably a phrase I hear a lot at the moment is it worth it? Because business owners take all the risk. They're the ones signing the leases, guaranteeing the borrowing, employing the staff, worrying about whether there'll be enough cash in the bank to cover payroll at the end of the month. You know, when customers don't pay, when costs rise, when something unexpected happens, it's usually the business owner carrying the responsibility. And yeah, over the last few years, we have seen that steady stream of tax increase and cost increases that gradually reduce the reward for actually taking that risk. I was chatting with our team just last week and she said something that really struck me. She said, I couldn't imagine running a business. It's just too much hassle. Now, she wasn't being critical at all, quite the opposite. And she isn't even an accountant yet. She spends her days talking to business owners and hearing about the pressures they're facing. And if someone who isn't an accountant can see how tough it looks from the outside, imagine how it feels for the people carrying that burden and responsibility every day. Now, before this turns into a very depressing video, there is some good news, because business ownership has never been easy. I've been around long enough to see businesses survive all of the things I've listed above and often come back stronger afterwards. You know, I could have looked back to COVID, and I think one of our clients who's heavily reliant on the travel industry, they used the time off as such to rejig the way they did everything, and now more profitable than ever. And the businesses that tend to do the best aren't necessarily the biggest. They're not necessarily the hardest working. They're usually the ones who really understand their numbers. They know where the profit comes from, know where the cash is getting stuck, and make decisions early when circumstances change. They don't simply work hard and hope things improve. They review their pricing, they improve efficiency, they focus on the customers and the services that generate the best profits, and they manage their cash carefully. And then they make decisions based on those facts rather than gut thinking or wishful thinking. And my view would be that it isn't whether running a business has become almost impossible, it's whether running a business without good information, a good plan and good support has become almost impossible. Because I think there's a lot of truth in that, even if I say so myself. And of course, if you need help in getting that good information, putting together a good plan, or you do just need a little support, please do let me know. Cheers, and I'll see you soon.